Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Sherry Gibson, and joining me in studio today is Sean Sullivan and Gary Geisman. They're representing the Dakota Youth Football and EDU Sports. And Gary, let's start with you if we can today, because you were basically the founder of this program, right?
Yes, we founded EDU Sports back in 2006, and we just wanted to put an idea together where we could provide youth sports and nutrition education for kids in the community.
That's a neat combination, because you're dealing with what age group of kids, first of all?
Our age group for the Dakota Youth Football starts in first grade and goes all the way through sixth grade, and we have teams or age divisions for each of those grades and ages.
So talk a little bit about how the education for the nutrition and healthy eating, if you will, combines with football.
Sure. This is where the name came from. EDU Sports is a combination of nutrition, education, and sports. So the concept is to integrate our nutrition education with our sports programs. So we have a nutritionist come to our facility, come to our practices, and they will explain nutrition concepts and guidelines that are age appropriate for our players. And we do some testing before and after the season to make sure that we're providing them with good nutrition education along with their sports and activity. We want them to have a good, solid nutrition foundation because we think that fuels them in the sport, and it provides for a healthy foundation for them.
Well, that's pretty innovative. I mean, back in 2006, now everything is about nutrition and health and, what you can do better. But back in 2006, I don't know if it was that prevalent. So you're kind of on the cutting edge here at that time.
Back in 2006, one of the highlights was when we were looking at founding the company, we were looking at something that we could provide the youth players with that was also nationally known. And at that time, childhood obesity was very, very prevalent and still is. So we're trying to turn that trend the other way. The childhood obesity trends back then were doubling every year. And so we're trying to turn that around in our community.
And are you seeing some success with that? Are kids
we're definitely
carrying it through to?
Yes, we're definitely seeing some. When we look at our numbers, we're looking at what these kids know primarily. So we're looking at the beginning of the season, we will ask some of these questions to them, very age appropriate, simply sometimes what foods are better than others. And as we go out through the season, from our nutritionist, she will educate them roughly 3 times a year. We'll come out and do a session. And at the end of the season, we'll take a post-test, and we'll see passing numbers. We'll see anywhere from 20% at preseason up above 90% for passing grades at the end of the season.
That's phenomenal. So I'm guessing that some of these kids are taking this knowledge home, too, to their families.
That's what
and
we
helping
hope.
Everybody.
Yes, that's what we hope.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the 2017 season. Now, here we are. We're just getting into baseball, and we're talking football. But there's a reason for that, because you actually start like midsummer. So you've got some registration dates and things like that. If somebody gets involved or has their child get involved with this program, what can they expect out of the season in addition to the nutritional information?
So what they can expect, first of all, is we have a fitting day coming up. We have an online registration, so parents can go onto our website. They can look at our calendar and see when games are scheduled. We don't have our opponents in there yet, but we know that within the NIFC, they have a schedule come out late July. Once that schedule is out, we'll know game 1 through game 8 where we're going to be. We typically have 4 home games and 4 away, and they will travel up to an hour for our visitor away games. We start our season the last week in July, and we go through the end of October. There are opportunities, depending on the records, if we go to playoffs the week after, which would be week 9, and then also a championship game at the end of the season.
Sean, if you would, as a coach, share a little bit about what you tried. Now, I'm assuming that you get involved with the nutritional training and education also.
Yeah, as coaches, we're there when the education component is, given to the kids with the nutritionist that comes in. So we're there for that. The biggest thing as far as a coach, though, that we're involved with is the safety aspect with concussion being such a knee-jerk thing right now, and it's important. But what we do is all our coaches are USA Heads Up certified, USA Heads Up football certified. And so
What does that mean?
that, well, we have to pass some certification tests that ensure that we're teaching proper blocking and tackling methods.
And so you're aware, too, of what to look for if there's an injury kind of thing?
Well, that, but also more, I don't want to say more importantly, but it's very important also that we're teaching the correct way, so that the head's in the proper position when we tackle, and that kind of stuff, so that it can reduce the chance of injury. It's a contact sport, so there's always a chance, but what we try to do through the USA Heads Up Football is reduce the chances of there being head and neck injuries.
And then, of course, the fundamentals of the game, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, and that, yeah, we integrate that then with the fundamentals of the game. Having your head and body in the proper position when you tackle, when you're carrying the football, when you hit somebody. That's basically what our main goal is as coaches. And the biggest thing with Edge of Sports, really, and Dakota Youth Football is we want it to be fun for the kids. It's not fun for the kids if there's, usually at the end of the practice, or at least a couple times a week, we'll play some games that are sort of football related, but it's fun stuff too that helps keep the kids interested and excited about coming out for football practice.
What are first graders about, like 6? Are they usually like 5, 6 years old?
Usually 6, okay. Turning 7. And
do many of them know much about football
when
they come in?
Surprisingly, yes. And what impresses me the most is that when from our first practice until our first game there's 11 practices, and so we have kids out there that have never ever been on a football field, maybe thrown a football with their brother or sister or mom or dad, but never played the game in an organized fashion. And in 11 practices, we can get those kids ready, and they're running plays. It's pretty impressive. And I was amazed my first year being involved, because that was the age level my son started at, and I thought there's no way. But they did awesome. It was great.
Okay, so you mentioned a fitting day. Gary mentioned the fitting day. What is that?
That's basically when we, all our coaches, we go, most of our equipment is supplied by Riddell. And so we go by their fitting guidelines, and we're well versed in the proper method that the pads and the helmets and everything have to be fitted. So the kids will come in, and we take measurements, and we try different size shoulder pads on, different pants, different helmets, make sure that it's the proper fit. And, that's what fitting.
So it's not just there's one left in the box, you take it. Absolutely
not. Okay. No, every year we end up we think we have enough, and we end up ordering new equipment because, we had kids change size every year. So, if we don't have the right size, we order new for your child.
So if somebody wants to get involved with this, you've got a registration deadline here coming up pretty soon.
Well, the early registration deadline is what's coming up, and that's for the discounted registration. That comes up the last Saturday in April. I got the date, April 29th. Okay. And then you'd have to go online to register for that, edgesportsinc.org. And that's $175. After the early registration deadline, it goes up $50.
Okay. Do you recommend that, because at first grade, kids, like you said, they've never maybe been on a football field before. Is this something that the kid needs to have a strong desire to want to play, or could they just be introduced to it here as a almost a social type of thing to get them out and get them active in a sport? Well, do you see both? Yeah,
I guess that if they're not, once they come out, if they're not super involved in the sport, they stick around because of the social aspect. It ends up usually being both, but obviously you have kids you can tell that they don't really care about playing football, but they have buddies that are playing, so they're out there.
They're exposed to it. Sometimes you don't know if they're going to be involved till they actually try it,
right?
And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, they're out there and they get to play in a game, and that's another thing that's a league rule in our conference is everybody has to play.
Okay, so you do have a conference. You travel. You playing teams of same age groups, right?
Correct. Yep.
How many teams do you actually have?
I think the conference is up to about 16.
16 organizations, well over 50.
Put the mic over there because I don't think we could hear that. Huh?
Yeah, referring to the Northern Illinois Football Conference, there are over 16 organizations right now, and they all have relatively the same age groups, and some of them even extend into 7th and 8th grade, which equivalates to well over 50 teams. We had 52 last year, and there's probably 60 plus this year. Now,
in Edu Sports with the Dakota Youth Football, how many teams?
What do you usually have? Edu Sports has 4 teams, yes. We have an 8 and under team, which we call the flyweights. And then we have the 9-year-olds, which we call the lightweights. Our 10-year-olds are the middleweights. And then our 6th graders, which are 11 years old and not going into 7th grade yet, they're called our heavyweights.
Okay. And you've, of course, got coaches in the whole 9 yards for all of them. And so they each play their own games, or does, like, when you have an event, maybe this is a naive question, when you have a game, say it's an hour away, wherever it is that you're going, do all of the different ages go that day and play, like there's 4 games, or do they each have their own thing?
As long
I didn't word that very well, but I think you know what I mean.
As long as the other organization or our opponent has a team at each age group, all 4 of our teams, all age groups, will play at their location.
Okay.
There are times where our opponents do not have, say, a heavyweight team. So we may have to kind of mix and match and fill those spots in different locations. But as long as our opponent has those teams, yes, we will all be at the same location.
Now, since this is Dakota Youth Football, do you have to be within, like, the Dakota School District or anything to participate?
Dakota School District is where we originated, but we do pull kids from the Foreston area, Orangeville, Stockton, Lena, some Pearl City, and some Freeport kids as well, and Aquin included.
Okay.
So they're all invited. They're all part of, geographically, where EduSports, Dakota Youth Football, pulls from these schools for the Northern Illinois Football Conference.
I can only imagine if a child starts at first grade, by the time they get to high school, that has to be a huge advantage for them, doesn't it?
What we're seeing is the coaches in the 7th grade program can immediately see some of the kids that have had this experience, how many years of experience that they have had, and they can also see the kids that are coming in at 7th grade. And there's a good foundation of technique that they already know when they're coming into junior high.
So let's get back to the participation again. If somebody wants their child to enroll in this, or get the child registered for it, how do they go about doing that again?
So the first thing they can do is go to the website at www.edusportsinc.org. I also would recommend that they check out our Facebook page. We have a lot of updates that we're posting on a regular basis. One thing to see when they get to our website is to look at the calendar. Our web calendar shows right now when our practices are. We start out the first 2 weeks of practice are Monday through Thursday. And then when games start on the 3rd week, we drop our Tuesday practices so that we have a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday practice schedule and game on Saturday.
Okay. edusportsinc.org, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, did we cover everything that you wanted to get out there to our listeners today? Sean, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, one quick thing is I wanted to point out, too, that we are a registered nonprofit organization. 100% of the funding from us is either through the registration, donation, or through some fundraisers that we have. We also accept sponsorships, so if anybody out there is interested in sponsoring EduSports or Dakota Youth Football, we'd love to talk to them about that as well.
And contact information through the website?
That's correct.
Is that the best way?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. I've been talking today. This is EduSports Dakota Youth Football. Again, it's open to students no matter what school they go to. But Coach Sean Sullivan and Director and Founder Gary Geisman, once again, that website is edusportsinc.org. That's edusportsinc.org. This is Talk of the Town. I'm Sherry Gibson. Thank you for tuning in today.